All righty, let's get going. Those are baseball guys. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Traug Keller, proud member of the class of 78, brothers 82, 83, sons 15, 11, nephew rising senior. Like many of you, prep is a family. With many of you, prep is a family affair. I'm honored to be your host tonight for the 2021 Prep Athletic Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Welcome to everybody. The rich and historic tradition of prep athletics can stand against any high school program in the country. From undefeated championship teams, thousands of student athletes, hundreds of all-state players, a handful of athletes who have gone on to play professionally. The history of prep athletics continues to strengthen year after year. So tonight, we're going to honor 5 individuals and 1 championship team who have paved their legacies into that rich history. Before we begin, to all alumni in the audience tonight, whether you're here on campus regularly or haven't been here in some time, I'd say most of you haven't been here in a year and a half, I say welcome home. To all who are watching, we're so happy you are joining us. To begin tonight's program, it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you Prep's leader to make a few remarks. This was Christian Cashman's first year serving as president, and what a year it's been. Christian has led Prep through, and hopefully soon, out of a pandemic, and all the challenges associated with running an all-boys high school. His steadfast leadership helped to navigate the ship while at the same time setting sights on Prep's future. A few weeks ago, I was lucky enough to spend some time with Christian and get the tour of the newly renovated Xavier. If you have not had a chance to see it, it is quite something. But in our conversations, Christian shared with me his vision for Prep, and all I can tell you is that our alma mater is in good hands, and the best years are yet to come. When I was up at ESPN, when the news got out that Christian was coming to Fairfield Prep to be the president and leave Northwest Catholic, there were a bunch of parents that worked at ESPN, and all they said was, "Wow, are you guys lucky? It's killing us. We're losing him." So, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome the president of Fairfield Prep, Mr. Christian Cashman.
Thank you, Traug, and good evening to the Prep athletic community far and wide. Allow me to add my warm welcome and gratitude for this great evening and Prep tradition, the Athletic Hall of Fame. Thank you to Traug for being our MC. He and I go back quite a ways. Our boys ran cross country together here at Fairfield Prep many moons ago, so we stood out on the track screaming and yelling together as parents and as Prep dads. Thanks to our advancement team, especially our hero, Kathy Nerell. Where's Kathy tonight? Kathy. For making this evening possible and pulling off a golf tournament in the morning. And thank you to the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for all the great work you've done in support for this night. I offer my heartfelt congratulations to this evening's inductees, to Jack and Rob, Father Brissette, God rest him, to Matt, to Peter, and the great 69 Prep football team. I say, well done, good and faithful servants. I'm thrilled to be back on North Benson as the 17th president of Prep. As Traug said, it's been an auspicious year to start a presidency, to say the least. But I feel very blessed by our families, by our boys, the resilience of our faculty, and to certainly our alums in this room who support our mission. The running joke is you may not have a Jesuit as president, but you've got a Christian at the helm, so I'll do the best that I can to take care of Prep. Together, and tonight, that Jesuit mission at Prep, I can assure you, is strong. It may be as strong as it's been in recent memory. For we have young men and women for others, our faculty and our boys, ruined by the Jesuits for life, who are as committed to advancing our mission as any Jesuits ever were. In fact, the Jesuits joke that some of us who were educated by them are more Jesuit than they are. So we're convinced that we are going to carry forth that great mission of educating mind, body, and spirit with that same zeal and boldness that the Jesuits brought to North Benson in 1942 when they founded the school. At Prep, we often say, we stand on the shoulders of giants, both Jesuits and lay men and women over the decades, and that is doubly true in Prep athletics. For 79 years, prep athletics has been the second classroom for thousands of scholar athletes and young men who are tested in the fire of competition and supported by the bonds of brotherhood. And as a prep father of sons who have grown into men on our prep teams, I have personally witnessed that transformation. Nowhere is the Jesuit mantra, men for others, more relevant than on the field, on the court, on the water, in the pool, on the mat, or on the ice. Tonight, our inductees now join the unbroken chain of prep men who have given selflessly to a higher goal, for team, for brotherhood, and for prep pride. It is a genuine honor to be with you this evening and to celebrate these great men of prep. In the famous words of Father Tommy Murphy, we may laugh, we may cry, but we never say die. Let's go, Fairfield. Fairfield, let's go. God bless.
Thank you, Christian. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to the Hall of Fame Selection Committee members who worked tirelessly on choosing this outstanding Hall of Fame class. Given Prep's proud athletic history, this is not an easy task. Committee members, please stand and be recognized. Are any of the committee members here? There we go. It's all you, Frank. And I'm going to echo Christian's thanks. Here's all I know. Nothing good here at Fairfield Prep ever happens without Kathy Norell's involvement. So one more time for Kathy. All right. Tonight, our inductees exemplify the definition of educating mind, body, and spirit. All are tremendous examples of men for others. Men who carried the Fairfield Prep name with honor, pride, and in the purest sense, what a Jesuit education truly means. So tonight we celebrate, from the class of 1951, a star athlete whose playing days started at the beginning of prep athletic history, Mr. Jack O'Connell. From the class of 2008, an elite lacrosse player who went on to win a national championship at Duke University, Mr. Rob Rotanz. A beloved teacher and administrator at Fairfield Prep from 1956 to 1992, he also served as chaplain for the football team, the late Father Eugene Brissette, S.J. From the class of 1983, a multiple sport athlete at Prep and former Major League Baseball player, Mr. Matt Merullo. And from the class of 1986, a three-sport athlete and outstanding wrestler, Mr. Peter Tolk. And finally, an undefeated football team who is still regarded as one of the greatest teams in Fairfield Prep history. We honor the 1969 varsity football team. This is not only a celebration of Prep and its athletic program, but more importantly, the alumni who have helped carve Prep athletics into what it is today. And I'll ask all previously inducted Fairfield Prep Sports Hall of Fame members to please stand and be recognized. That's you, Paul. There you go. Paul, if you want, I can bring up the one time you struck out, dude. All righty. Tonight, we honor the student athletes who came before. To all our inductees, congratulations on this wonderful night. Congratulations to your families. And on behalf of Christian Cashman and everyone here at Prep and our alumni, parents, and friends watching from home, we're delighted and honored to forever have you part of our school and our athletic Hall of Fame. So enough introductions, let's get going. One of the best playmakers of his era, Jack O'Connell was a 3-year basketball starter and captain Prep in his senior season, was a first-team all-district selection, and finished third among all scoring leaders at 15 points per game. The Jesuits went 34-13 in O'Connell's 3 varsity seasons. Jack was named Prep's all-decade team 1942 to 1951. He went on to play at Fairfield University, where he compiled over 1,000 points and averaged over 20 points per game, and was one of the first inductees into Fairfield University's Athletic Hall of Fame in 1982. Please turn your attention to the screen as we honor Jack O'Connell.
Jack O'Connell, class of 1951.
I'm here to introduce the most senior of tonight's honorees, Jack O'Connell, my dad, class of 1951. Jack grew up in Bridgeport and looked forward to going to Harding High School, but his parents made the sacrifice to send him to Prep. That sacrifice is still as impactful now for Jack as it has been for the last 74 years. Fairfield Prep helped my father lay a foundation that would carry him through life based on faith, community, hard work, respect, competition, and camaraderie. Dad had a great career at Prep at a time when Prep was not allowed to play for a state championship, nor could its athletes be considered for any all-state honors. Dad was all district and proudly still talks about beating state powers Harding and Central, especially beating Central the year Central won the New England championship. Jack leveraged his success at Prep to go to Fairfield University and become a 1,000-point scorer, a member of their initial Hall of Fame class, and a member of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Honor Roll, which is housed at the Naismith Hall of Fame in Springfield. Jack was also recognized as an honorable mention All-American by the New York sports writers after his career at Fairfield University. My mom and dad moved our family to Hingham, Massachusetts in the late 1960s. As kids, we were aware that our father had been a star athlete, but we didn't pay too much attention to it. However, I settled in Fairfield after attending Fairfield U and had a chance to learn a little more about who Jack O'Connell, the basketball player, was. I loved Sandy Solzicki's column in the Connecticut Post, The Week That Was, which went back in time each week to tell what was happening locally in the world of sports. I was able to read about Dad's heroics as if the games were just played, and I gained a much greater appreciation for his many successes on the court. What I also realized reading the column each week was that I knew the names of all the guys he played against, in addition to his teammates. He always spoke highly of his competitors. He wanted to be the best, but he also wanted to beat the best. I met Porky Vieira, former baseball coach at the University of New Haven, at a golf tournament about 25 years ago. Porky was a multi-sport star at Central High School at the same time as my dad, who went on to set basketball records at Quinnipiac and is considered one of the greatest athletes to ever grow up in Bridgeport. When I introduced myself as Jack O'Connell's son, you might have thought I was royalty by the look on his face. And in Porky's eyes, I was the son of local basketball royalty. Porky said he always loved playing against my father and that my dad had a lot of trophies that he wished he had. I was given a few questions to consider to keep me on point for this introduction. The final one was, what do you think being inducted to the Fairfield Jack's 12 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren? It is my honor to present my dad, Jack O'Connell, for enshrinement into the Fairfield Prep Athletic Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Whatever I say is not going to be enough. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the other inductees being inducted tonight. And I would also like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee for selecting me to be into the Fairfield Hall of Fame, to join 2 of my good friends, Emo Garfalo and Jackie Ringel, and 2 classmates, Bob Skowronski and Roger Radford. We inductees in the Hall of Fame should also give a thanks to Mark Henderson, who was the initiator in starting another Prep Hall of Fame after so many years, and for Father Thomas Saminsky to approving that Hall of Fame. And I also think we should give a congratulations to Sandy Sozicki and Lou Pintek for the excellent 50-year coverage they did on the history of Fairfield Prep basketball and football. I'm very proud of what I accomplished here at Prep to help establish a strong athletic program in those early years. I'm especially proud of being the first inductee into both the Fairfield Prep and the Fairfield University Hall of Fame. I'd like to accept this award today as a representative of so many other prep athletes in the 40s and 50s who would be equally qualified to be here today. And I'd like to mention a few of them. Dick Shea and Mattie Foreman from 46. Whitey McCall from 47. Billy Schultz and Vinnie Burns from 48. Billy Bonney and Jackie Liptak from 49. Babe Brisley and John Miyako from 1950. And one of our classmates who was president, Freddie Judd, who just passed away. And when I read his obituary, he flew 238 missions in Vietnam. And then my good friend Bobby Gerwin. Let me tell you a little bit about our connection. We started going to grammar school at Bliss Acton School in 1938. We went to school every day of our lives until we graduated from college. We started playing basketball in the playground out behind Bliss Acton School. We ended up leading Bliss Acton to the state championship when we were in 8th grade. We went on to have good careers here at Prep. We went on to play 4 years at Fairfield Prep. We were the second and third scorers to score 1,000 points in Prep history, and we were, as Tucker said, we were inducted into Hall of Fame at the same time. And we still see each other at least 2 or 3 times a month. And we both agree that in our 83 years of being together, we can never think of a time when we had to argue, even if I took a bad shot. But in my opinion, I never took a bad shot. My connection with Prep. I met a fellow student when I was a freshman at Prep. His name was Jack Quilty. We ended up going to Fairfield together. Jack didn't have a brother. I ended up as the best man at his wedding, the godfather for his first child, and being busy with him for over 30 years in the food brokers business in Boston. Our wives became like sisters. My daughter was their daughter's maid of honor, and we had many, many family occasions to celebrate happy occasions. I returned to Prep. I began to attend to a lot more activities. We started our Romeo group. What's a Romeo group? Retired old men eating out. Mostly all Fairfield Prep 51, Fairfield 55. I started going to a lot more Prep athletic events. That's no surprise to anybody. Started playing golf with a lot more Prep people. And I'd like to mention a few. George McGoldrick and Jack the Pledge. Billy and Bobby Burns. I love Billy Burns. And Dr. Jim Roach, who was a friend from parochial school days when he went to St. Anne's and we went to Blessed Sacrament. And then the Latin scholars asked me to be on the board of directors. What a pleasure to be involved with men from the class of 45 and 46 with foundation of Prep sports. Their objective, just to continue Prep's legacy and to support them and do what they can for Prep alumni. And I'd like to point out that every single one of those written Latin scholars were former Prep athletes. And now, I'd like to thank my family for their love and their support. My 3 boys, John, Tucker, and Michael, and their spouses, and my 12 grandchildren, who 7 are with me tonight. Who keep me tech savvy and make me smile when I think of them. And I also thank my son, Gary McDonough, for the wonderful care he took the calf. And I would like, before I close, I would like to Oh, I'd like to mention some other prep people that I had. John Lanning, who I became very friendly with. He was a 48 prep grad. He had a son that went here, 2 grandsons here. His daughters became very active in the prep community and was the proudest guy ever to a prep. And now I like to, I guess I'm a little confused now. So anyway, all I want to do is say thank you for inviting me here tonight, and I'm very proud to be a member of the Prep Hall of Fame.
I'll get that. Fairfield Prep lacrosse took a major step into elite status in Connecticut thanks to the talent of athletes like Rob Rotanz. And you could say the entire Rotanz family. The 6'3", 197-pound midfielder was a part of Prep's first 3 Class L state championships from 2006 to 2008. During his Prep career, Rob compiled 153 goals and 67 assists, including 51 goals and 18 assists in his senior season, when he was named to the Under Armour All-American team. Rob represented Prep proudly at Duke University, where he helped the Blue Devils win the 2010 NCAA championship. In 77 career games, he scored 78 goals and 18 assists and set a school record for goals by a midfielder with 40 in 2012. He was named to the All-ACC team and was selected as a first-team All-American. After Duke, Rob was selected with the 8th pick in the Major League Lacrosse draft by the Ohio Machine in 2012 and played 2 seasons of professional lacrosse. Please turn your attention to the screen as we honor Rob Rotanz.
Rob Rotanz, class of 2008.
Some of my favorite memories are when Rob and I were teammates on Prep's lacrosse team. Rob was a senior midfielder, I was a sophomore attackman, and we were lucky enough to play on the same squad for Prep's 2008 state championship lacrosse team. Stats and awards are one thing and something that Rob had plenty of. He's way more proud of being a member of a 3-time Class L state championship teams while at Prep than any individual award that he received. Rob always wanted to go to Fairfield Prep. So when that time finally came, the rest was history. Rob got to Prep and he played football as well as lacrosse. And so he loved Prep, but his passion was and still is with lacrosse. He made varsity all 4 years and learned a lot his freshman year, but the magic all started to happen when he was a sophomore. Prep at the time had an awesome team and snuck into the playoffs as the lowest seed. Now, being the lowest seed in playoffs has to take on that #1 seed, the Goliath. In that year, that was Greenwich, and they were, trust me, fully loaded. Nobody gave Prep a shot. We were considered a huge underdog, and we're lucky to be there, really. Prep started out trailing 4-1 in the first quarter to Greenwich, and their fans were going nuts. They even silenced our legendary bomb squad, which is very hard to do. Until everyone's favorite teacher, Mr. Trevor Fanning, stood up and started chanting, "Fairfield Prep, we can and we will." That chant completely changed the game. The momentum swung in Prep's favor. It was that sense of community that helped propel the team to tie the game and take it into OT. Lacrosse OT is sudden death. So, Rob wanted to make this a quick thing. Didn't want to spend too much time in OT. He wanted to end things really fast, and he took things into his own hands. And after a huge win over Greenwich, the team made Mr. Fanning an honorary member of Fairfield Prep's lacrosse team. We made a huge banner using his motto, "We can and we will," and brought it with them for the remaining of playoff games. So after beating Simsbury in the semis, Prep played an exciting game against Norwalk in the finals, and it went into 4 overtimes. Finally came to an amazing end with Prep on top.
Rotanz cranks it up, he beats Hearst, and the Jesuits win their first ever state title, a classic in 4 overtimes.
I didn't really feel like we had the momentum, but I don't know. It's just great to win. Finally, to give Prep a championship. It's just great.
When you let it go and you see it go into the back of the net, what do you think?
I was just like, oh, thank God this is over. We're champions.
Now, after winning Prep's first Class L state championship in 2006, this team went on a roll. The following year, they beat Greenwich 10-9 in the finals in 2007 and was considered one of the best teams in the country at that time. And now, Rob's senior year in 2008, we went on to beat Ridgefield. Now, this is an extremely intense game that went into triple OT, and this completed that three-peat for the senior class and was by far my favorite Fairfield Prep team, mostly because I was on it, but also because I got to share with my older brother. Now, Rob went on to get a scholarship to play at Duke, where he started all 4 years and was a member of some really great teams as well there. I found out it was more fun actually playing with Rob on the same team than against him when we played against each other a few times in college. He was an ACC all-academic team. He made the ACC all-conference team and was a first-team All-American his senior year. He broke Duke's record for midfielders by scoring over 40 goals his senior year as well. And his team won 2 ACC championships and went to 4 Final Fours, with winning the 2010 national championship as well. It's quite a resume in his college years to go with it. But believe it or not, Rob wasn't done playing lacrosse quite yet and was drafted in the first round of Major League Lacrosse at the number 8 pick. So with all that being said, Rob has had an incredible career, and I enjoy being a part of it and watching him throughout all of it. I think if you ask him, he would say that his years at Prep were some of his most satisfying and fun memories. He had some great teammates that combined to accomplish some lofty goals, and Rob is the type of guy that you want in your foxhole, trust me. So it is my distinct pleasure to present my older brother, Rob Rotanz, for enshrinement in Fairfield Prep's Athletic Hall of Fame, Class 2021. Congratulations, Rob.
Man, what an intro. Thank you, Brendan, and my family for putting that together. That I know that took a lot of time, and that was really quite a throwback. Good evening to everyone. I just want to say a quick thank you for everyone for coming out tonight. Obviously, thank you to my brother, which I just said, for such an amazing intro, and congratulations to my fellow recipients for such terrific careers and for being honored here tonight. Let me start by thanking my family for being so supportive of my athletic career over the course of my life, especially my parents, who convinced me to start playing lacrosse in the 4th grade, even though I had determined that that basketball was my future and I was going to be playing in the NBA. So, Mom and Dad, you were right, and that was the right decision to play lacrosse. Obviously I have so many memories, and watching that, it's really, we've done with my teammates through 8th grade, high school, college, so many memories that just come flashing back to you. From the coaches and players to the games and battles we've won. All these experiences have really helped me find and define myself as I've grown up here at Fairfield Prep. Obviously my favorite memory, which my brother touched on, is getting to play alongside him my senior year and winning a state championship. That was something that I always like to reflect on. It's not a lot of brothers get to do that, and it was very special and, something that I hold dear to my heart. But tonight I would like to share one particular story from my days as Jesuit that I think sums up my experience at this great school, and in my opinion sums up what the Fairfield Prep experience is all about. It was mentioned a little bit in the video, so I don't want to, but it's okay. I think I'm going to rehash it a little bit. So my sophomore year of high school, our lacrosse team had advanced to the quarterfinals of the state playoffs with a young, talented roster. We found ourselves up against Greenwich, which was the number seeded team in the state, and they were loaded with Division I recruits. They had beat us by a pretty large margin in the regular season, so we were, definitely underdogs coming into the game, and we definitely didn't start the game off well, going down 4-0 early on. Obviously, when you're down 4-0, people don't really cheer for you because there's not much to cheer for. So the Prep sideline was very, very quiet, a little ominously quiet. But in that moment of silence, one man you could hear chanting, and at first you didn't hear what he was saying, but as he continued, you know, the message was very clear, and it's a very simple message, but we can and we will. And, you know, it takes a lot of guts to be the only person cheering for a team that's losing 4-0 when everyone else is pretty quiet, right? So not soon after that period of time, we scored our first goal. And the can and we will chants continued, and more people chimed in, and another goal we scored, and another goal, and slowly we tied it up, and soon enough, the bomb squad's going crazy, and everyone's chanting, we can and we will. And you know what? Next thing you know, it was a hard-fought game. We made it to overtime. You saw the goal. We won. We beat Goliath. It was quite the upset, and we got to move on in the playoffs. But that man chanting was Trevor Fanning. He was our theology teacher and fellow Prep alumni, and he's also the best advocate for Prep school pride that I've ever seen. So he's here tonight. He came all the way from Maryland. I just want to thank him for coming up here. Very special man, you know. So anyways, so I was lucky enough to score that goal that day. But looking back on it after all these years, I think it's hard to think of a better illustration of what Fairfield Prep is all about. You have alumni cheering on younger generations, right? You have the bomb squad going crazy. You have the on-field excellence, right, and the tradition. It was all there, men for others supporting men for others. So I thought that was really special. And of all the things that we did, that one game really stuck out in my career, in my mind. And, you know, I'm happy I could spend it here with, you know, the man that gave us that slogan. So, you know, I also see that game against Greenwich as the catalyst where our young team, you know, talented team, we really realized our potential and jumped to the next level. You know, within a week, we had won the school's first state championship in another overtime thriller. And then after that, my class of 08 never lost another playoff game in our time here at Prep. So we can and we will turn into we can and we did. And that slogan coined by Mr. Fanning has stuck with me ever since and has been great words to live by. So thank you, Mr. Fanning, for inspiring our team and myself. You know, I'd also like to thank my coach, John Matthews, is here. He was my coach through junior and senior year. He was also a very influential part of my high school career. You know, he was always the voice of reason on our bench, and he was always someone that you could go to with, you know, whatever issues you were having. And having played at Syracuse, having won a national championship himself there, he was someone that, you know, we all respected and admired. So thank you very much, John, for coming out here tonight as well. It means a lot. It means a lot. So I'll be quick here. Just to bring this speech full circle, I wanted to talk about something I found pretty profound when it was first told to me. So my coach at Duke, the great John Danowski, who's still there and honestly is the mental guru, the chill bro of college coaches. You know, he always had a good way of putting things in perspective and getting guys to kind of buy in. And you know, he would always refer to being part of a team or program as being part of a journey. That journey started with the players and coaches who came before you, and it will end with the players and coaches who come after you. And it's up to you during your part of the journey to determine how your chapter and legacy will be remembered based on the hard work you put in to making yourself better. So with that in mind, I would like to thank Fairfield Prep and the Hall of Fame committee for recognizing my chapter and legacy from my time here. I'm humbled and honored. I've always tried to leave a place better than where I found it, and hopefully my contributions and the contributions of my teammates help strengthen the path for future generations of Prep lacrosse players to start their journeys here. So thank you all again, and go Prep.
Congratulations. My brother's you guys. I'm going to talk about a few of those.
Photo up here. Yeah, use this bad boy. Yeah, thank you. Congrats. Thank you very much.
Father Brissette was a teacher and administrator at Prep from 1956 until 1994, and served as chaplain for the football team during the tenure of both Athletic Hall of Fame coaches, the late Joe Brosley and the late Earl Lavery. Father Brissette eventually made his way to Fairfield Prep in '56 and was a mainstay on the faculty until 1990. He served as chairman of the science department, and his forte was chemistry. I'm sure a lot of you in this room remember fourth floor Xavier and chemistry with Father Brissette. He retired from teaching in 1990 and was appointed special assistant for development and remained in that capacity until he retired for good in 1994. Father Brissette passed away after a long illness on December 27, 2002, at the age of 83. Fairfield Prep has kept his memory alive by appropriately naming the athletic center after him. So let's watch this video about our friend, Father Eugene Brissette of the Society of Jesus.
Reverend Eugene Brissette, S.J.
In defeat, we come down there, no matter whether we've lost or whether we've won, we start the fight on. Why? Because it's characteristic of what's in our hearts. Our hearts may be bleeding. Maybe our eyes are full of tears because we've lost. But we still have the courage and the strength to know we may laugh, we may cry, but we never say die.
Perhaps no one was more visible on the Fairfield Prep sideline than the Reverend Eugene Brissette. Father Brissette was a teacher and administrator at Prep from 1956 until 1994 and served as a chaplain for the football team during the tenure of both Athletic Hall of Fame coaches, the late Joe Brosley and the late Earl Lavery. In his role as chaplain of the football team, at every game, Father B would be found cheering on the team as he paced the sideline throughout the contest. No doubt, he was prayerfully petitioning the Almighty to provide any divine support the team might be needing. A native of Providence, Rhode Island, Father Brissette was an ex-football player himself, manning the center position his freshman season at Boston College in the fall of 1937. But at the end of that first year, he received a higher calling and entered the Society of Jesus. During the 1940s, Father Brissette's time in Jesuit formation took him to Weston College, where he studied philosophy, and back to Boston College, where he earned a master's in chemistry. In 1952, he traveled to the Jesuits' mission in Jamaica, where he taught chemistry at a secondary school until 1955. Father Brissette eventually made his way to Fairfield Prep in 1956 and was a mainstay on the faculty until 1990, inserting into his chemistry class plan an occasional mini lesson on Catholic doctrine. Father Brissette retired from teaching in 1990, but he was appointed Special Assistant for Development and remained in that capacity until he retired for good in 1994. He relocated to Campion Health Center, but continued to maintain a lively interest in Fairfield Prep in his years of retirement. Father Brissette passed away after a long illness on December 27, 2002, at the age of 83. Fairfield Prep has kept his memory alive by naming its athletic center after him.
You know he's looking down on us right now. Please welcome Tom Shea, class of 1973. We'll say a few words. Tom.
Well, good evening. To the inductees, I say as a former prep athlete, known more for his participation than his performance, I am in awe of your accomplishments. Congratulations and well done. Administration, thank you for the opportunity to talk about Father Brissette. I got to digress for 1 second because the video emphasized him as a chemistry teacher, and I recently heard a story from Ed Rowe, who had Father B as a chemistry teacher in 1959. If you had Father Brissette, you'd know that the lab is a serious place, and if you fooled around, he'd tell you, I'm going to smack you right in the head. Don't. And one day they were doing an experiment with white phosphorus, which is exposed at the air. It's flammable. So they had a cover on it, and Father Brissette's threatening everyone to behave. And as he walks by, kid lifts up the lid, bursts into flame, and catches his cassock on fire. So there's Father Brissette starting to go up in flames. And a couple of the kids just go over and they grab a fire extinguisher and they put him out. And then everyone waits for the explosion. And Father Brissette looks around and he says, you know, that was a pretty tense situation and you boys handled that pretty well. You don't have to take your final exam. So that would be a bad lesson, I think, to pass on to students if he were still here. But again, thank you for giving me the opportunity, because anyone from the 1969 team or anyone that played football during those years could come up here and talk about his sermons, his impassioned sermons that I think we all remember so well. I did not go to a church-going family, so all of these priests and talk about religion was very foreign to me. But I heard the guys talk about Mass, and it seemed like it was something very special, and I wanted so much to go to Mass on Friday. But if you had any chance of playing in a JV game on Monday, you didn't go to Mass on Friday. You went out head-cracking JV practice. But I must have got a promotion at one point and started going and just sat mesmerized as this man with this incredible fervor and passion started to talk to us. Now, you saw in the video, that was after he went Hollywood with the signage and all that kind of stuff. In the early 70s, there was a little chapel, I think in the second or third floor of Berkman's, that could seat about 25 people. And we would go in there, and he would use his mnemonic devices. I think that's how you say that word, right, Paul? So he would tell you PrEP. What does PrEP stand for? So the P stands for perseverance. The fight song says, we never say die, we never quit. That's how you play the game. The R is for respect. You respect your opponents, you respect your coaches, you respect your teammates, you respect yourselves. The E is for execution. That's the first rule of sport. You don't execute, you don't win. And the P was for pride. Pride in everything that you do on the practice field, everything you do in the game, everything that you do to the very best of your ability. That's what made PrEP different. That's what made PrEP special. He had devices for pride. He had devices for respect. He probably had them for perseverance and execution. He had many of them. He would tell us stories. I'm sure you guys remember the story of the thoroughbred. Thoroughbred's a horse breed to run as far and as fast as it could possibly go. It will go till it collapses and go no further. And then a thoroughbred will get up and take one more step. And the message was clear. That's how you play football, and that's how you live your life. And I think the fact that Father B was a football player, right, and could find God in the great game of football and could find God in the relationship amongst the teammates enabled him to talk in a way that resonated with me as a 17-year-old boy, and I think everyone else, because in my life at that age, that's what my life was about, playing football. Father Brissette did two things that are so important to the Jesuits. The first was he didn't talk about it, but there's this concept of the magis that we talk about today, which is just to get the most out of everything that you have. Every athletic gift that you have, get the very most out of it by following that mantra of PrEP. And of course, he found God in all things. We remember him on the sideline, working the beads, working the officials. I also remember Father Brissette, of course, just used to, glorify the Virgin Mary, and he would say that prayer, the Memorare, which I had never heard of, and wanted so badly to memorize those words. I didn't feel I was going to be really a part of the team unless I knew that. It took a couple of years to finally get it down. We didn't have the internet. You couldn't look it up. But I'm not going to say it, but I still know it. I was fortunate to keep Father Brissette in my life. I visited him often, and in 1987, he married my wife and myself. I got to visit him a few times in Weston, and the last time was just a few weeks before he died. Joe Miller, who had worked here, Joe's great PrEP guy, loved PrEP, and he had called me up. He said, Tom, I'm going to visit Father B. He's not doing well. Do you want to go? And I said, yeah, sure, Joe, absolutely. So we drive on up. And we go in and see Father B. And at this point, he's pretty much incapacitated. He's just laying there. And we get through kind of the general chit-chat. And he looks at me with those eyes. He bores through me and he says, Tom, you go to church every Sunday? Busted. But I'm Jesuit trained, so I can equivocate. And I said, of course, Father, I go the majority of the time. And he looked through that sham very quickly, and he said, no. He said, I need to hear your confession. I start sputtering. What? Here? Now? What, are you kidding? We can't do that. He said, sure we can. Miller, get my stuff and give us a few minutes. And Joe goes, and we sit there, and I got to sit there with the person that I admire most in the world and, tell him all of my shortcomings and faults. And he blanched a couple times, but treated me with kindness and gentleness. And, from him, I got my, first formation in spirituality in my life. In fact, he spoiled me for every non-Fairfield Prep Mass I ever went to after that. They were pretty dull affairs. And that second time was kind of like a rebirth for me at a point in my life when I needed it. I don't know if you ever got his Christmas greetings, which would be just a piece of paper Xeroxed with some prayers cut out and Xeroxed on it, but he would always sign off the same way. And he would say, God bless you and your family, always, one word. In all ways, two words. And so I think if he were here tonight with us, he would sign off and he would say, God bless you and your families, and God bless Fairfield Prep, always and in all ways. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about Father Brissette.
Thank you, Tom. Matt Merullo, another gifted two-sport star for Fairfield Prep, excelling in football and baseball. On the gridiron, he was a three-time All-State selection as well as an All-MBAC choice and was a member of Prep's 1982 Class LL championship team. Yet, with all the success on the football field, his true calling came on the baseball diamond. Matt starred behind the plate for the Jesuits, wielding a dangerous bat as well as a strong throwing arm. A 6'2", 200-pound left-hand hitter was a three-time All-MBAC pick as well as an All-Stater. He played 4 seasons for Coach Ed Rowe, compiling a lifetime batting average of .377. He ranks first on the Prep career list in hits, 84, and RBIs, 70, is one of the few Jesuits to have had a 30-hit season. And Matt, we were talking, actually, we think Father Spruill and Father Welsh also had 30-hit seasons, if you know. During his tenure with Prep, the team won the MBAC championship every season. A member of the 1983 USA high school team, Matt was offered a scholarship to North Carolina and played with the Tar Heels until he was taken in the 7th round by the Chicago White Sox. Matt spent parts of 6 seasons in the majors, playing with the Indians and the Twins. He saw time behind the plate as well as at first base and designated hitter, and retired with a lifetime batting average of .234 with 7 home runs and 59 runs batted in 223 games in the big leagues. Following his retirement, he served a stint as a minor league manager in the Baltimore Oriole organization and as a scout for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now please turn your attention to the screen to watch some stuff about Matt Merullo. Good stuff.
Matt Merullo, class of 1983.
For what he accomplished athletically, Matt Merullo will always stand shoulder to shoulder with the best athletes in Fairfield Prep history. It's as simple as that. In baseball, Matt was an outstanding catcher and an offensive powerhouse. Many regard him as the best hitter and catcher hitter ever to play at Fairfield Prep. Every time he came to bat, people stopped and paid attention. There was just something different about the way he hit the ball and the sound, the crack that it made as he sent it on its way. Baseball was Matt's sport when he came to Prep. He had never played football before. Through his talent and his work ethic, Matt earned his place as a 3-year starter on Prep's varsity football team. He earned his role as captain of a state championship football team, and he earned all-state honors. Matt was a coach's dream. He didn't coast on his skills. He always worked to improve them. The competition and expectations of Prep's teachers, Coaches and teammates brought out the best in Matt. Baseball is in Matt's DNA. His grandfather Lenny, his father Boots, and his son Nick all played great baseball and all had at least some level of professional experience. Matt's grandfather was the shortstop on the Chicago Cubs' 1945 World Series team. And then I always wondered, where did Matt get his experience or his skill as a tight end? How did he catch those crazy catches that he made of the football? And I found the answer. That came from Lenny also. Look at the air that Lenny got here going for a baseball. It looks just like Matt on the football field. But what has grown for Matt and what has grown stronger over the years has been his prep friendships. We read the box scores to see how he did for the White Sox, the Cleveland Indians, the Minnesota Twins. We watched him play at Comiskey Park, Jacobs Field, Wrigley Field, Camden Yards, Yankee Stadium, and even Fenway Park. Some of us joined him after some of those games. My best memory came after prep. Matt was playing for the Cleveland Indians at the time, and I was working in Washington, D.C. Matt got me tickets to the Orioles game in Baltimore, and I sat behind home plate. Matt was catching. Mickey Tettleton of the Orioles was on second base. Billy Ripken, their second baseman, was up at bat. He ripped a single to left field. In what's called a bang-bang play, Matt took the throw and landed the tag unavoidably on Mickey Tettleton's chin, stopping him dead, out at home, end of the inning. As luck would have it, Matt was the first up in the next half of the inning. And boy, did the Baltimore fans let him have it. Everyone was on their feet booing Matt, except one person, me. I was behind home plate, cheering for Matt as I was being pelted with ice cubes, pretzels, hot dogs, and a shower of beer. All of it was worth it. My prep teammate had shown his skills at the highest level of Major League Baseball. One teammate, one friend that I have to mention because of how important he was to Matt and all of us is Mark Masiello. Less than 2 years out of prep, we lost him. Mark was Matt's closest friend at prep, on and off the football and baseball fields. The two were a great pair, two incredibly gifted athletes. Mark's death was very painful, but it is a friendship that Matt would not have traded for the world. On a much brighter note, prep helped Matt find the greatest friend he has had in his life, his incredible wife, Chris. Matt's success at prep led to a scholarship to play baseball at the University of North Carolina. Matt met Chris there, and she has been by his side ever since. Matt's teammates at prep take credit for Chris. After all, without us, Matt would not have had the success he did at prep, never would have gotten that scholarship to UNC, and so never would have met his wonderful wife. So Matt, you're welcome. And Chris, we're sorry and thank you. So in closing, my name is Andy Phelan. It is my honor, on behalf of Matt's teammates and his friends, to present Matt Merullo for induction into the Fairfield Prep Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Matt. You've earned it.
Great job, Andy. Once a scout, always a scout. I know how to pick them. Okay, I really got to follow a Harvard guy at the podium. At least I'm hitting cleanup. Did Edro call and give you guys a lineup for this thing tonight? Because I'm hitting fourth, and I feel right at home. It's a tremendous honor to be here tonight. Congratulations to fellow inductees Jack, Rob, Peter, Father Brissette, and the '69 football team. The list of those in this hall is impressive and humbling to be joining. My memories of Father Brissette include his pregame sermons you've been hearing about. And yes, up in fourth floor Xavier, the time he had me kneel on my knuckles for a full chemistry class. Very humbling. When I think of prep, I think of a family and a winning tradition. I think of brothers and champions. People often assume I was recruited by prep. I laugh and tell them I was rejected at first. Then I got a phone call. A neighbor had clipped an article from the local paper, wrote a letter to Father Allen, and I was asked to meet him at Bellarmine Hall. My neighbor was Mary Alice DeSalvo. In 2019, I went to her funeral to tell her family how she changed the course of my life. They had no idea about the letter. So thank you, Mrs. DeSalvo and Father Allen, for giving me a second chance. My dream of going to prep started when my father took me to watch the Martin brothers play hockey. The energy in the rink was incredible. Prep had the bomb squad, and I fit right in with my red hair and braces. Watching those championship games, seeing Kevin and Frank out there, it made me want to compete for prep too. For me, the family pride welded here is special. Earning a prep diploma is special. Wearing a prep uniform is special. This place is where I learned to raise my standards if I wanted to accomplish anything, like a state football title in 1982. While I'm up here, can I please ask that we remove the word clip from Ed Boyle's official identity? The family of prep reaches far and wide. My first game in Chicago was opening day '89 versus the World Series champs, Oakland A's. I was nervous. The umpire started asking me questions while the pitcher warmed up. The ump was John Hirschbeck. He told me he was a JV basketball coach at prep before my time. And that conversation made me feel so at home. I went 2 for 4 with a home run, and I threw a base runner out at second, which is rare for me. If I only had an arm like Mark Masiello, I'd be living in Chris Drury's neighborhood. I had the honor of meeting Chris once. I was thrilled at the opportunity. But when he said that meeting me was like meeting a legend for him, well, that made my night. I knew right then who was going to pick up the bar tab. Speaking of legends, we have some here tonight. My class of '83 pals: Ed Boyle, Pete Richlick, Jim Matthew, John Linnell, Andy Phelan, Rick Garfalo, and Joe Mancini. Thanks for coming, boys. Well, now you know why, but I chose Andy for my enshrinement because after a few weeks it hit me hard. The same way Andy hit me in practice every day, all day. He was tenacious, and then it dawned on me. He had helped me prepare for success. You practice the way you want to play. You commit yourself to excellence. To quote Father Brissette, you need to have an intensity of purpose. Andy was the perfect choice. First, he's a big-time lawyer who wouldn't screw up this night. More importantly, he's a great example of keeping the prep connection strong. As you heard, he was in the crowd that night in Baltimore when I made that tag play you saw in the video. He was cheering for me like he was in the bomb squad, but he was all alone. He was doused with beer, but it didn't keep him quiet. When I came up to hit, he took it again, never gave an inch. That's Andy. Thank you. A special thanks to Joe Mancini for all the BP you threw me, the positive reinforcement from you and your pop, and listening to my endless calls whining about another slump I was in. I also want to point out some upperclassmen here. You guys are my legends. You took care of me, you treated me right, you showed me how to win and have some fun too. Jim Sparazza, Brian McGillicuddy, Tony Capuano, Kevin Martin, thank you. It means a lot to have you all here. To Ed Rowe and Earl Avery, thank you for my opportunities as an underclassman and for teaching me the prep way on the field. I'm sorry my math will always be terrible. Your commitment and dedication is immeasurable. Your impact on us all carries on. To coaches Bobby Maffei, Richie Magden, Bob Maffei Sr., and Tom Shea, thank you for your passion and wisdom. Richie wrote me one of the most inspirational letters when I was in AA, in the minors that is, reminding me of where I came from. In '95, he asked me to speak to the football team before their state championship game. Years later, I met a player from that team who mentioned my speech. I had forgotten it, so I asked him. He said, well, it went something like, they can never take it away from you once you're called a winner. I really don't know what else to say. Just win. So they did. I've been blessed to be on winning teams since I came here, and at every level afterwards, from college to the big leagues as a player, a scout, and a manager. I've been a part of many losing teams as well. Not fun. I had a lot of fun at prep, though. I miss putting on the gear, but I miss my teammates more. I would especially like to acknowledge Mark Masiello, H.A. Butterworth, and Bill Perry. Also, Mr. Tom McGillicuddy, Brian's father, who was like having a really cool uncle at school. There are too many names behind my prep experience to mention, but I cannot leave out Father Ryan, who helped me gain a better understanding of faith. Finally, my Merullo family. To my mother and father, thank you for making the effort to provide this education and experience. Nick, you had a different experience, and I'm extremely proud. But do you always have to beat up on the Jesuits so bad? Mom, I miss you. After all those talks about my decision to come here, I know you would be happy tonight and thrilled to know I am surrounded by 3 powerful, smart, and beautiful women after a life of boys only. Chris, Sally, Carly, I love you. Thank you for all your support as I've lived my dreams. As the fight song goes, ladies, we may laugh, we may cry, but we never say die. Thank you. Good night.
Peter Tolk was another of those gifted athletes who made their mark in more than one sport for Fairfield Prep. As a football player, Peter was a 3-year starter at linebacker, captained the team his senior year, and was named a first-team all-conference and all-state choice in his senior season. But Tolk's forte was wrestling, a sport at the time still emerging at Prep, often competing against much heavier competition in terms of weight, class. Tolk was a 2-time Class LL state champion and 3-time Class LL finalist. He won the 167-pound championship twice and also was a 2-time state freestyle champion. He wrestled with the varsity for 4 seasons. His last 2 years with the Jesuits went 14-2 and 19-3 respectively in dual meets. Tolk was co-captain his senior year, and he helped lead Prep to a 3rd-place finish in the Class LL tournament. Pete was also a 2-year member of Team Connecticut and competed in the National Junior Olympic Tournament. Upon graduating from Prep, Peter wrestled for 4 seasons at Franklin and Marshall and was the team captain his senior year. Please turn your attention to the screen as we honor Peter Tolk.
Peter Tolk, class of 1986.
For Peter, prep was everything. Peter competed in 3 sports. He was a star in 3 sports, football, wrestling, and lacrosse. But for Peter, it was all about team. Even an individual sport like wrestling, for which he's most noted, it was about team. He had so much pride in seeing Prep advance. Everywhere we went, he represented Prep well. He had a lot of pride, and still does, in Fairfield Prep. So the impact that Peter had on Fairfield Prep, particularly in the sport of wrestling that I can speak to, when Peter was a freshman, the team that he was joining was basically considered a club. Prep was in the MBAC in those years, and there were very few, if any, MBAC wrestling programs. So Prep had to pick up matches wherever they could off other people's empty spaces in their schedule, and could only schedule maybe a half dozen or so matches a year. The team had probably won a total of 3 matches over 5 years. When Peter was a freshman, through his whole career, the team never had a losing season, and in his senior year was 19-3. A great deal of that was because of his abilities, his accomplishments, and most of all, his leadership. No one worked harder. No one was more of an example of how to train, how to prepare, how to motivate than Peter. Every single person in that room looked up to him. When Peter competed in tournaments, it was must-see wrestling. People left other mats to go see his matches. You know, Peter was very instrumental in building the program because wrestling has, you know, at that time, maybe 13 weight classes, and particularly in the upper weights, we didn't have a lot of athletes. And so he actually went and recruited many of his football teammates to join the wrestling team that were good athletes but had no experience, and took it upon himself to teach them in practice to make them competitive. It was through Peter and Josh's success, since they were both football players, that helped convince Coach Lavery to give his nod of okay to the football players to join the wrestling team. Peter, on the wrestling mat, was a dominant force. He could beat you with strength, but he could also beat you with speed. And he prided himself on being a technical wrestler. In fact, his senior year, in 21 matches, he had 42 takedowns, 0 given up. Beyond that, though, he was the most humble person you would meet. He always deferred to his other teammates that were instrumental in upset wins that won us matches, not himself. He is truly a man for others. He has dedicated his life to helping others. He got his master's and his doctorate from Columbia University in social work. And he works now not only as a private practice therapist, but in the Fairfield Public School system as a social worker. Really caring deeply for those people struggling with both emotional and social needs. My name is Joe Beninati, and it is with great honor that I present Peter D. Tolk for enshrinement into the Fairfield Prep Athletic Hall of Fame. My mentee, my brother, my friend.
Thank you, Joe. Getting old. My eyes, I have my cheaters in case I need them. Congratulations to my fellow inductees. I should say that when I was a freshman, Matt, you were a senior, and you're definitely a legend that I looked up to, so it's pretty cool to be in your company and be in your class. I'd like to thank the nominating committee for presenting me with this incredible honor. While there are many people that are truly responsible for this honor, I'd like to highlight a few. And one thing I want to say, I was doing my research before, I had to figure out what I was going to say. And I know that the Hall of Fame, the whole process has just really begun. So it's good to be a has-been and, step back into memory lane. And because of that, for me, it's pretty special because I get to share this with my wife and my kids. Karen, Adam, and Jamie, it's good that you guys are here. So again, I'd like to highlight a few of the people that I, appreciate. First are my parents. They always encouraged my brother and Josh and me to work hard at whatever we did. But what was really important is that while they were supportive and involved, they were never over-involved. So I thank them for that. Next, my brother Josh. I feel very fortunate to have grown up with an older brother who's a successful athlete in his own right. So having a point person, someone to kind of set the standard, really helped me to push myself and follow his lead. So thank you. I'd like to thank the Prep community. Being a Jewish athlete at Prep was a special experience when I competed. My two team chaplains, Father Brissette and Father Shaughnessy, were wonderful spiritual leaders who made my Jesuit experience top-notch. I'd also like to thank my athletic director, Bob Harris. He was a great advocate for all student athletes, and he played a large role in helping build the Prep wrestling program back when I was here. I'd like to thank my teammates. While I wish I could mention many of the individuals who made my experience memorable, there are two guys who I share a special bond. These two guys began organized football and wrestling with me at Fairfield Country Day School. The three of us then finished our scholastic careers together at Prep. I should note that I did play lacrosse, but I actually stopped after 9th grade, so I veered from them a little bit. But I want to thank you to Lawrence Wells and John Chioda, and John is here tonight. I'd also like to acknowledge my two fellow senior co-captains, Chris McNeil for football and Tim Ambrose for wrestling. Next, I'd like to thank my coaches. I was fortunate to play for the legendary Earl Lavery. However, I also had the misfortune of having Coach Lavery 2 years as a teacher for honors math. The guy never gave partial credit. A problem was either right or wrong. So I learned quickly that hard work and attention to detail was what he valued. On the football field, Coach Lavery showed no favoritism and demanded the highest effort of all his players. My two assistant coaches, Bob Maffei and Richie Magnan, were the heart of the team. Coach Maffei, who was my freshman coach, moved up to varsity my sophomore year. I know that he always rooted for me and had my back. Then there was Richie Magnan. Richie was small in stature, but he had the presence of Andre the Giant. I developed a close relationship with Richie that continued until his death. Richie was an incredible mentor and motivator. So that leaves me my most important thank you. It's rare in life that things work out perfectly for you. But when I think about my prep wrestling career and the coach I had, it couldn't be closer to the truth. Joe Beninati coached prep for 4 years, all of my 4 years. He took a team that was respectable at best and developed us into one of the top teams in the state. Joe was not only an outstanding coach, but he was a highly accomplished college wrestler. Joe was a 2-time college All-American. So having a coach with his experience and knowledge was a true gift. He brought out the best in me and helped me accomplish my goal of being a Division I wrestler. So when I reflect on my athletic career at Prep, I guess it can be described as an interesting dichotomy. Football and wrestling, while both intense, aggressive contact sports, they require different mindsets. That is, football is the epitome of a team sport. There are a lot of moving parts that must come together for a team to be successful. I love the fact that my teammates counted on me as much as I counted on them. I remember some of our great games together, but my final game against Notre Dame of Fairfield was especially meaningful to me. By the time we played Notre Dame, I had already made the decision to wrestle in college, so I knew that was it. I would never play football again. As the game time dwindled and we knew we were going to win, one by one, the starters were taken out. I remember looking to the sidelines after each play and locking eyes with Richie Magnan. He smiled and kept motioning me to stay in. So I always reminded Richie, after my days playing and after prep, I always reminded Richie of my immense gratitude for allowing me to finish my football career on the field. So I thank him for that. Each year when football ended, I had to go through a mental metamorphosis to begin wrestling. While wrestling is a team sport and the camaraderie among teammates is special, you compete as an individual. As a wrestler, preparation is key. You strive to be superbly fit along with managing your weight. You strive to perfect your technique. You strive to maintain a controlled intensity and mental acuity. And then you have to step on the mat and face someone who's done exactly the same thing. Wrestling for Prep was an awesome experience. We were a gritty, driven bunch of guys who just needed a coach and a leader. Joe was that guy. He was our messiah. Through Joe's charisma and guidance, we had a packed wrestling room of motivated guys who wanted to make their mark. This is what made us a successful program. I'm proud to share that my senior year, we placed third in the state tournament, possibly the highest finish ever for prep wrestling, which was noted in the video. After prep, I continued wrestling at Franklin and Marshall College, and I was coached by a legend in wrestling world, Mark Fowler. Coach Fowler was not a demanding guy, as he expected us wrestlers to be self-driven in our sport along with our academics. Playing a sport in college is difficult, but wrestling, with the intensity and sacrifice it requires, brought it to another level. It was an incredible experience that I'll never forget. So in closing, when I think about my days competing in athletics, what was most important to me was the relationships I had with my teammates and coaches. But I'd be remiss not to acknowledge how participation in sports has helped me in many aspects of my life. I learned that if I set realistic goals, I can achieve them through effort and sacrifice. Participation in athletics also taught me time management and crisis management skills. It taught me that setbacks can pave the path to success, to never underestimate those around me, and most importantly, that character matters. Thank you very much for this incredible honor.
Last, but certainly not least, the 1969 football team was the 5th undefeated and untied team in school history and the second 10-0 squad coached by late Prep Athletic Hall of Fame coach Earl Avery. The team rolled to Prep's 5th consecutive MBAC title and winning by 2 touchdowns or better in all but one game, a nail-biting 6-zip triumph over then arch-rival Law of Milford in Week 4. Led by junior quarterback Chuck Lemieux, all-MBAC running back and co-captain Pete Brawley, all-MBAC center and co-captain Dave Lincoln, all-MBAC fullback Greg Gintoff, speedy running back Paul Mitchell, ends John Ramos and Tim Burns, and the linemen Kevin Beardsworth and John Fryer, the Jesuits outscored their opposition 290 to 56. The defense, only to be outdone by the defense. The defense, anchored by all-MBAC nose guard Walter Welsh, tackles Rich Ryan and Ken Brzezinski, linebacker Dave Tucker, and cornerback Dave O'Connor, posted 5 straight shutouts to start the season and had 6 overall. In victories over Bassick, Central, Harding, Law, and Bunnell, the Jesuits outscored their opposition 134-0. Stratford was Prep's final shutout victim, and the Jesuits wrapped up their undefeated season with victories over Milford and Stamford on Thanksgiving Day. Please turn your attention to the screen as we honor the 1969 varsity football team.
The 1969 football team.
To win takes a complete commitment of mind and body. When you don't have the desire to make that commitment, they don't call you champ anymore. Finally broke through with 14 points, but Prep countered with 34. Its next opponent, Notre Dame, also scored 14, but the Jesuits netted 27. Stratford was Prep's final shutout victim, and the Jesuits wrapped up their undefeated season with Prep's football tradition.
Football team into the Fairfield Prep Sports Hall of Fame. So, how about if Dave Lincoln comes up? I know he's going to say a few words, and then the whole team comes up right after. So, Dave.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, teammates. I'd like to thank the committee for honoring us in this fashion. Being selected to be in the Fairfield Prep Athletic Hall of Fame is an honor we'll all cherish. I'd like to congratulate the other inductees, and thanks once again. We started the season with 2 returning starters, a handful of seniors with experience, a promising junior class, and the sophomores were pretty much unknown. We were not supposed to be a good team. From our start with captain's practices during the summer, attendance was good, we worked hard, and we felt ready towards the end of the summer. We started double sessions. We became lethargic, ground down. We had the dead legs. Coach Earl Avery called me down to the coach's locker room. He told me that I needed to start kicking some butt, inject some energy into practice to raise the intensity level. Nobody expected much from us. We were uncertain as to where the season was going. We started our season playing the 3 Bridgeport teams, Bassick, Central, and Harding. They were athletic but disorganized. We shut them all out. Our next game was against the Jonathan Law team that was averaging 42 points a game. They were a good team. They had a terrific quarterback, a solid running game, and, well, they had a lot of tough guys. Our secondary played an excellent game. We intercepted their quarterback several times. The front 7 shut down their running game. Their quarterback, who was also a good runner, we had to rush him, staying in our lanes to be very disciplined. We pushed the line of scrimmage back 10 to 15 yards. He was letting passes go 15 yards back into the behind the line of scrimmage. We shut them out 6-0, as the film has already told you. We really weren't given a chance to win that game. We were a significant underdog. After that game, we started to come together as a team. We felt better about ourselves. We continued winning. The juniors had emerged as a force on the team. I think that our toughest time was when we played Milford. The late Peter Brawley was injured and unable to play. It was a factor in the game. It was the only time we were behind all season. We were behind at halftime. As we went into the locker room, it was chaos. Coach Lavery quieted everyone down. He gathered the offensive line together. He asked who could control their man, and of course, who's going to say they couldn't? So Earl asked us what would work, and we felt that they were shooting the gaps on us. We needed to close down, tighten up. So Coach Lavery changed the blocking schemes. We came out at the start of the second half and ground down. We ran 10 plays up the middle, scored a touchdown. We were still behind at the end of the third quarter. At about that time, we had a 3rd and long, and as we were not a very good passing team, Coach called for a screen pass out on the flat. Greg Kintoff caught the ball. He was hit immediately. He looked like he was going down. He put his hand down, braced himself, bounced back up, and got the first down. We went on to score 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns and won the game. Our next opponent was Stanford. They were the FCAC runner-up. They had beaten us the year before in the last game of the season, destroying our chances at a 10-0 season the year before. To us, it was a revenge match. We wanted Stanford at this point. We were now an experienced team. We were playing well together, and we were excited to play them. All week during the week before the game, we did our calisthenics in practice to chants of revenge. It was pretty intense. In the pregame warm-ups, we did silent cals, which back in the 60s was something you did when you had a really big game. So we did our calisthenics quietly, and then when we did our last set of jumping jacks together, we started chanting revenge at the top of our lungs. The fans started chanting revenge at the top of their lungs. Boyle Stadium was shaking. It was great. The opening kickoff was received by Paul Mitchell. He wove his way through the Stanford defense. He went 80 yards for a touchdown. We went on to win this game decisively. Stanford was never really in it. In retrospect, you try to think back and why did we win? There were no Tommy Liddies. There were no Dave Revenaws. There were no Frank Lustaboros on our team. But we had a lot of good players who played hard together and supported one another. When we needed a play, someone stepped up and made it. It was never the same person, but someone made the play. I think also that our coaches put us in a position to win. We were a running team, and we played good defense. We weren't asked to try to score a lot of points a game. We stayed within ourselves and we won. We played hard and we won them all. Thank you.
So much.